Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Creatives of Windsor Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Sherdown, and today I'm sitting down with local multimedia artist, radio DJ, event thrower, Murad Erzinclioglu.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've been tuning in. I've been checking out a bunch of the episodes, and so, it's an honor to be included with this pantheon of Windsor creative, and I love how diverse it's been. Like, it's not just painters or photographers or musicians. It's really a really wide array of really creative people. So it's pretty flattering to be included amongst them.
Thanks. Yeah, you've been on the list since the beginning. Before I started this, I made a list of everybody.
Okay.
And the list is huge.
Oh, I bet it is. I'm probably no better than most. The list would be massive.
It's crazy. Because so many people, people have told me, is there that many people to interview? And I was like, yeah, I could do it daily forever.
Just off the top of my head, you could do a podcast like this once a week for easily for 5 years or more, 10 years. There's just the number of artists that I've worked with who I know are still alive and in the city locally who have done some really incredible things. You could do a lot. You could do a lot of episodes for sure.
And then once I started it, I found so many more, which is kind of why I wanted to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and over the course of even a year of producing a podcast like this, there's probably a dozen or a couple dozen more people who have, come into the fray that, whether, that will be worth interviewing or already are worth interviewing or podcasting with, or I guess it's just a conversation, but it's not an interview, but
Yeah. So how, I know you're doing a bunch of stuff right now, but you've been doing stuff for forever. Ever since I first came up kind of into the scene 10 years ago, you were already fully dived into it. When did you
long time.
really dive into doing any creative endeavor?
Well, I got into being creative on one level or another, really young. I remember in grade 3 or 4, there was the school newspaper, and me and my buddy Andrew, we were the music writers, which was us just basically plagiarizing music reviews and, whatever we could find in the liner notes of, best of records. Here's an article about the Doors. But we were into music. We loved listening to records. I grew up listening to a lot of music. My parents, like most people's parents, you can kind of dig through what they have, but they were very open to us just exploring music and stuff. So music was kind of the first one. And then I also, in grade 4, we were allowed to do the announcements.
Oh, sick.
So I did the announcements on the PA, and I don't know, I had a knack for it, and I really liked doing the announcements at school, and did the announcements at school throughout elementary school and then in high school as well, for years. So I had a lot of experience being on a microphone, doing almost radio work. Even at lunch hour, I was part of Eagle Radio, which was my high school's. I grew up not in Windsor, in Welland, Ontario, and so I went to this school, Eastdale, and we were the Eastdale Eagles, and we had Eagle Radio, and once a week they would let me just play whatever I wanted in the cafeteria.
Oh, that's sick.
And so I got the DJ for the cafeteria, and it was that was kind of a gateway into music and stuff. And then once I got to university, I was going to school for visual art and communications, and I very quickly got involved with CJAM, and everything kind of just started steamrolling in Windsor from there.
How long have you been with CJAM for?
Well, I got involved with CJAM, and anyone listening, I feel like is probably interested in the Windsor scene and probably already knows what CJAM is, but like Windsor, Detroit's campus community radio station, operating on FM since 1983. I got to Windsor in 2002, September, for university, and I was involved with CJAM within like 7 days or 6 days of being at
over
school.
20 years.
Yeah, over 20 years now.
Damn.
So 21 years. I think I'm on my 21st season of my radio show, which I've been doing under the same name and kind of the same model, a music variety show, independent music, any genre of music. For a long time, I focused almost exclusively on new music that had come out in like the last 90 days, 100 days or so. And if it wasn't new, then if it wasn't that fresh, I was just kind of be like, oh, well, maybe it'll be on the best of, but like what's coming out now. And only recently after the pandemic, because I took a little bit of a sabbatical, a lot of us did during that time, from producing like live radio shows, and it was just kind of reruns for a little while. When I came back, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be so rigid about only playing music from the last, 100 days.
Yeah.
And started kind of like digging a little bit further back. But yeah, I've been there for, 21 years. And we just celebrated our 40th anniversary, and I was part of a team that was helping to organize, the anniversary celebrations for that. And it's been a really long road there, from just being a volunteer to being on the board of directors to working there, and now just being a volunteer again, which I still love and just kind of go in there every week.
That's sweet. I saw you shooting some shows in Detroit for them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, shooting bands for CJAM was like kind of not fully part and parcel. Like, I had been into photography since I was, 15, 16, even younger than that. Like my stepmom always putting a camera in my hands. She was always like, you've got an eye for this. Like, when we were on family trips or when we were out and about, and she was very generous with the film. She was happy to let me, play around with the camera and shoot photos. And she probably saw that I liked doing it too. And so, my parents were like really encouraging of me, exploring photography. I got a job at Black's Photography.
Yeah, I remember.
When I was in high school, and learned all about like commercial printing and, negative development and commercial dark rooms and all the really like kind of high end stuff for the time. And, even at like, I think about being like 16, 17, working on that kind of like gear, that like you wouldn't even dream of working on today. Like the landscape of photography has like shifted so dramatically. But yeah, I studied photography when I was visual arts at the university, and then again in journalism school at St. Clair. And it's something I've just always enjoyed. And shooting live music to me is like, that is like the apex of photography for me. Like, I just love the in the moment, you usually have a very short window to like snap these pictures, and the access that CJAM has afforded me to do that on their behalf has been huge.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just got to shoot, if I go back through the archives, and I'm better at shooting the photos than maybe I am at posting them.
Yeah.
Geez, I go back through the archives, and there's like, I've shot hundreds of bands. Like, there were years where I had a lot of time on my hands, I guess, and I was obviously going to shows like twice a week or something. And it was just like, I look back and, 2016 or 2015, and it's just like, you went to 80 shows and you have the photos to prove it, like, and I didn't bring my camera to every show. So I went to a lot of concerts and continue to try and get out as much as I can. Been shooting a few shows even the last few months, and, it's really, as you get older, it becomes more challenging to fight your way through a crowd, Yeah. You're really thankful for the times you're like shooting at like a bigger venue and they have like the barrier wall and you're like, okay, I get the first 3 songs. Yeah. Nobody's bumping into me. And
except
then
for
like,
the other photographers.
Yeah,
they're manageable.
The other photographers are very manageable. It's like when you're at the L Club and there is no
L Clubs.
There is no barrier wall. It's like, if you want a good photo, you got to fight your way through this crowd. And I was at the OCs like a couple of months ago, and I was like, I got to get at least 1 or 2. Like, that's all I really want at this point. Just one really cool photo. If I can get more than 1, great. But just one. Yeah. If I get just one good one that I really like and think is cool, then, it's worth it. But I was up there like, arm in the air, just like being bounced around, and like, there's like, you're in the middle of a mosh pit and you're like trying to like focus, but it's fun. And it's something I've always loved, shooting bands, and I just love the in the moment nature of it. And that it's not easy. It's not easy to get the photo that you want because everything's happening at once.
It is a skill for sure. I used to shoot tons of bands when I first started, and up until pretty much until COVID. And then obviously during COVID, like, I couldn't shoot in the States anymore and there was no shows here. And then I started transitioning to more like travel work. Mm-hmm. In like 2017, 18, 19, but still shot bands. And then during COVID, I just went only to travel stuff. And I've had so much of that to work on, and I've been shooting so much of that I haven't really got back into shooting bands, but I always miss it. And
yeah, like there's so many different directions that you can go with photography, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just, and it's something that like, people have always like asked me like, oh, you do photography? Well, like, why don't you do weddings? Or I think my parents, they were like, we heard wedding photographers make a lot of money. Like, you should, think about shooting weddings. And it's like, I don't think I'm the wedding guy. There's all these different paths that you can take with photography. And I think I'm trying to find my niche. I mean, photography is a big part of what I do for my career as well. Like, for like how I make a living is kind of being like a marketing work all for smaller and mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
To take the photos and do the graphic design and write the copy for the website and the captions and the info sheets and whatever the business is like trying to get out to the world. And so I certainly use, my photographic skills, but it's, it's a part of a much bigger picture. But for social media and stuff, using your camera is like key.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's, it's a big part of what I do for my job. And so I feel like when I'm not doing shooting for my clients, that it's really about, shooting for fun. So like, I want to shoot music, and I want to shoot cats, and I want to shoot, like abstract, decay, like macro, like close-ups on textures and rust and degradation.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that I like taking photos of. And so and even for travel, I always bring my camera on trips, but I don't use it. you know, like, because we're trying to have a good time, you know, I don't want to have, you know,
a lot of people are like that.
yeah, you know, it's just like I'm on vacation, you know, so it's an opportunity to take really crazy photos, and I will take it out for a day, you know. We were, you know, out for, you know, a week-long vacation. I'll bring out the camera up maybe one of those days to take some photos, or I'll snap a pic here and there when the opportunity presents itself. But yeah, it's like I do it so much for work that it's like I want to do it for fun and be choosy about what I shoot when I'm, you know, we were in Italy, and it's like, oh, you take photos of the Trevi Fountain, and, you know, it's just like, you know, everybody's taken that photo. When I broke my camera out was when we went to this like really famous cat sanctuary, because I love taking pictures of cats. When I was in Thailand in 2018, I went to this island, and I was really missing my cat. I think have famously or infamously like loved my cat. I post about my cat. I feel like most people who know me know that I had a cat named Pumpkin, and
Yeah, I knew that.
post about him very regularly. I made him his own Facebook page, and like yeah, a lot of cat content. So I love taking pictures of him and just around the house. And then yeah, I was traveling, and I went to this island that was like literally overrun with all the friendliest domesticated cats. And like, it was an island, and everyone just let their cats go out. And I was traveling alone, and I'm on the other side of the planet, and I didn't really have anyone to hang out with per se. You know, you make friends with people you bump into along the way, but for the most part, I was just on my own.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like, I'm going to take pictures of cats. I think I realized like the first night that I was there, I was like, you know what? That'd be a good way to spend your time. And so I spent my days like exploring the island and taking breaks and having a beer and, you know, having fun on my trip. But as I was doing that, I was like, had my camera on my hip, and I like cat treats in my pocket. And I took like, I don't know, like 200 portraits of 200 different cats, like sets of portraits of these cats that I bumped into on this island. And it was like, that to me is like, that's what I want to do with photography. Like something that's like very niche, and I go to a place where there's a lot of something, and then I'll like dig into it. But then when I was in Italy, I was like, oh, there's this really famous cat sanctuary. I should go and try and visit them and take some photos there.
Yeah. That's cool. Nice. I wanted to ask you about what you're doing with Tragic Fate. Like, what is it and all that stuff?
Tragic Fate is like a project that, like, I guess, you know, sometimes things take a really long time to come to fruition. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a project like that where, you know, you have an idea, and then I think I came up with the idea for Tragic Fate in 2015. It was like such a long time. So I came up with the idea for Tragic Fate in like the summer of 2015. I had just gotten into collecting enamel pins, like these shiny little pins, and realized like that there were like so many of these little makers who would like make these funny little badges and pins, and, you know, they sold other things, stickers or whatever. I just like went down like a Instagram wormhole of, you know, really like just indie makers and artists, and just kind of fell in love with like the idea that you could just take your little jokes and your quips or whatever and turn them into something tangible. And so, you know, I was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make a thing. And so I was jotting down ideas. Didn't have a name for it, but yeah, within a couple of years, I came up with the name Tragic Fate, and I wanted to have a theme, and I wanted to wrap around the idea of like celebrating superstition and making fun of misfortune. And like, I love superstition. Like, I don't believe in it, but I love it. I think that it's funny. Like, there's like I'm not the first. I'm not going to believe the horoscope, but I'll flip to the page to read it. It's not like I live my life by what the horoscope says, but like I love to read it and try to apply it to my own life.
Yeah, like the idea of it.
Yeah, the idea of it, and like I love that a lot of superstition is like, it's just like kind of a crock of shit. It's like, it's not real, or it's not real to me at least. And it's just like a way to like, I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy. Like, it's a dream of mine, was to like have a tight five and like go up at even at like a place like Craft Heads and like do the open mic comedy.
Yeah.
That is also very like intimidating. So like Tragic Fate is a way to make jokes, but as art.
That's cool.
As things.
Yeah.
And as like tangible items that can be used in day-to-day life. And that was the idea of it. But yeah, it took so long, from coming up with the idea that was like, yeah, I want to make some things. And then, getting to the point where you're like, oh, I have a theme and an idea now that I can, try to base the ideas around. That took like 3 years. And then, and then there was like a couple of years of like really like thinking about it and doing the research and being like, okay, if you want to make pins, like, where are you going to make them? And if you want to get stickers done, like, what are the budget, and what are all the items you're going to make, and how are you going to package them, and how are you going to present them? And I got really into the idea of like thinking about art as not necessarily as a commodity, but you can sell one $2,000 painting to one person, or you could sell $2,001 little stickers to 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And like, I've always been like of the mindset of like, I want something that I can use to like reach a wide swath of people. And like, I don't come from money. And so like, I want something that's like easily accessible, like that there's a ladder for people to climb.
Yeah.
That it's like, when I do Tragic Fate items, like they start at $1. Like, we have something for everyone at all these events, like from funny misfortune cookie, tragic fortune cookies, like for $1, or a sticker for like $2, or like a keychain for like $5 or something. Like, I want to make it easy for people to like engage and like with these ideas.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, that was a big part of it. And being able to work with artists, like, I think historically, a lot of the stuff I've done, whether it was with CJAM or with the Fam Fest, or
did you start the Fam Fest?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you about that.
Yeah. But yeah, just to stay on Tragic Fate, like whether it was like through CJAM or something like the Fam Festival, or something like that I do with Mousetrap now, but like even like Tragic Fate is like a way for me to express ideas, and not only for me to express them, but to work with people that I like and want to have them help me express certain ideas. And so like I'll come up with an idea, and if I don't think it's like the right thing for me to execute on, like as the designer or the artist, then I am certainly not too proud to go to somebody who I think would be.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Tragic Fate, and like I'd say 50% of the designs are done by other artists. And like I very happily credit them like as the people who like brought these ideas to life. And that's a big part of Tragic Fate too, is that it's like building a network of really awesome, talented people and showcasing their work and my ideas and having some fun and having some laughs. And, Tragic Fate is like, it's an art project that's run like a business. Because, I've got these like really ambitious ideas, and in the same way that you can, sell $2,001 things, you can spend $10,000 making one item, one really wild item, but then you have just that one thing, and you've got like, 250 of them, and that's all you sell. And so I had these really lofty ideas and ambitions, and I started doing the research around them. And I was like, well, I can't afford that. But, I have all these other ideas that can be reimagined in all sorts of different ways, and let's climb the ladder ourselves. Like the same way we want to create a ladder for, the customers and the end people on the receiving end of the art, like trying to create a ladder for myself to get to the ability to execute on really kind of larger and wilder ideas. And so it's like always kind of like a back and forth of like, how can you balance the investment that you're making against the return and against your ambition for what you want to share with people? And, I don't take anything from Tragic Fate. Like when you buy something from Tragic Fate, it goes into like the Tragic Fate account so that we can make more ideas and bring more ideas to life. Like I don't pull a profit from it. And so the whole idea of it is that I can just keep reinvesting anything that we get out there back into itself to make the next crazier, wilder idea.
Yep.
Until I can get to this point where we're making really all the, the stuff that I might have dreamt about almost 10 years ago now that I'm still like pretty far away from getting to.
Yeah.
But that's the long game, right? And you build it up and you have fun along the way, and you work with really cool people, and you meet really cool people, and that's like the whole
point.
Yeah. Like for me, I like making stuff. Like I like going through the process of like making something tangible, whether that's like a photo that you take and make as an Instagram post, or an idea that you have that you turn into a drawing and then into a sticker. This is cool.
Greg
this
did
for
that.
me.
That's for you. That's yours.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. That's from Greg Maxwell, did our
logos.
Yeah.
So Greg's done some work for Tragic Fate. I love Greg. He's the best.
He's the best.
Yeah,
He did 3 logos for this.
he's a legend. He's like a living Windsor legend, and he's young. He's a young man. He's not. He should be older for how much he's given to the scene, and like and I love that he's starting to get some real notoriety. Had like a really cool magazine write up recently.
Oh, sweet.
Was featured in this arts magazine, and I was like, this guy deserves his due.
Yeah,
Ugly Vision, Greg Maxwell.
Yeah, Greg's the best. He does every show poster forever. Like,
he's like one of those. He's one of those go-to guys, and like when I'm putting on an event or I am putting on a pop-up art show, or, you know, I'm like trying to think of how many times Greg and I have collaborated in one way or another, and it's just like, it's almost countless at this.
Half the posters on that, every poster that isn't one of my photos is from Greg from a show I've had.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
and
cool
you know
here.
exactly. Thanks.
Everybody says that, right? Like at some point or another during every episode of your podcast, you direct people to like actually take stock of of this like hybrid garage you have, and it's like, yeah, it's cool in here.
Thanks.
You got all your art everywhere.
Yeah, my pieces are kind of like, these ones are always coming and going because like they're in shows or they're up on a wall somewhere or this or that. And then that wall is my things that don't move.
Ah, okay. This is your side. This is what you're trying to move.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
sometimes they transition from this wall to this wall because I like them a lot.
Yeah.
Or they end up in my house.
Or
usually.
yeah, or somebody makes an offer on one of those ones that you're like, you know what, I can't refuse that. Yes, and then you'll fill in the holes. Yeah, hey, you know, don't get too attached to anything.
I did that once, and I've one piece I sold, and I've always regretted it.
You know, it's weird like that, like, and that's kind of why I like Tragic Fate too, is that like, it's certainly not one of a kind. Like we come up with a concept and a design and we mass produce it. We make t-shirts, and I mean, mass is a relative term, you know. It's just like, oh, we made 500 stickers, you know, like it's not that mass produced, but the idea of it is that it doesn't have to be made by hand. That we can take ideas and we can execute on them and make them in a way that, and a lot of times sometimes I'll be looking for something and come up with ideas as I'm looking for it. Like I'm trying to find somebody who can put this, like we have these Post-its. So you try to find a company who can make Post-its for you. And then in the process of like trying to find a company that makes Post-its, you find a company that makes Post-its, but they also make all these other things. And so like, as you're like clicking around their website, you're like, oh, they make, I don't know, whatever. Like they make these things, a straw, like, and then it's like, okay, a metal straw, and you can print on the side of it. And I'm like, well, what's something that a funny straw could say?
Yeah.
Like, so that's like, I mean, I'm like trying to come up with ideas all the time, but then I'm very happy to let like what's out there be able to be like, oh, okay, so these are at the right price point for me to actually be able to afford producing them. What's the funniest thing that you could write on a straw? Like, I don't know. This sucks.
Suck it up. I don't know.
I'm not afraid to reach for low-hanging fruit. I love low-hanging fruit. Sometimes I think it's actually some of the funniest shit is stuff that's just like, it's just within reach. You don't gotta jump for it. You don't need a ladder.
Yeah.
You don't need anything at all. You can just, you know. This is really tasty, by the way. I've only taken a couple sips. But
you like it? Okay, cool. Yeah, so if anybody hasn't noticed in the first half an hour that we're doing a Christmas episode, that's why we have
this is a Christmas episode. Are you dropping it on Christmas?
No.
On Christmas Day?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't know. Should I? I was going to drop it before Christmas.
Oh, I guess you could.
Just to like,
Christmas came early.
Because what's today? The 4th? I was going to drop it like within like the next week or two.
Christmas came early.
Just to be like, you know, with the spirit. Besides us drinking eggnog that has rum in it and wearing Santa hats in this backdrop, I guess we're not really talking about
we're getting festive. Well, you know, I hope that people stuff their stockings with Tragic Fate this year.
There you go.
I always thought that like Christmas would be a good time for Tragic Fate because it's so cheap, and it's like, oh, it's a little gag gift that you could put in, like a little quick laugh. It only costs you $5, you know? Like, I always thought that would be a good time for us, but, yeah, I guess it has been. We did a show recently, and it was really great. So I guess I can't complain.
This time of year is crazy for me, but I would definitely like, I'm glad it went so well at the Kubota with your Mousetrap, and I definitely want to take part in that at some point.
For sure. And Mousetrap is like almost a direct extension of Tragic Fate, you know? And as I learned when I was much younger, when I first started the Fam Fest, it's like, if you're trying to get your own stuff out there, don't do it alone, you know? Put yourself in a room with a bunch of like-minded people, and good things will happen. You know?
Find people that are a lot more talented than you are. Put them all around your work.
Yes,
and there you go.
Yes, this is. I've been preaching. There's so many interviews or whatever. It's just like, yeah, you put yourself in your whatever you make in the middle of like a bunch of really awesome people, and then all of a sudden, like everyone starts to think you might be as talented as they are.
Yeah.
And you ride their coattails, and you make, what is it? Make hay while the sun shines? I don't know what the saying, there's some sort of saying about like, you know, you do something when the something.
It is make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah. So I don't even know what I guess, the hay gets dried out by the sun. That's how you make hay.
Yeah, I guess.
So, like, when the sun's shining, get that, whatever.
Yeah.
What's hay made out of? Straw? Or is straw's not hay?
We're getting...
Oh, wow. You're going, like, full Joe Rogan here, like, researching what we're talking about?
Usually I got a TV up.
My lunacy? Like,
it's just dried grass. It's just dried grass.
Yeah. Okay. Dried grass. Yeah. Hey.
And then, and it probably needs to be sunny to dry out. There you go.
But I mean, Mousetrap was like very much an extension of like needing a place for Tragic Fate to exist, and like a place where where I can sell it and make it make sense, because it is different. And like I look around at like a lot of the craft fairs or like events around town where like that kind of stuff happens, and like sometimes I'll go to them and I'll be like, oh, I wish I did this, and I'll try and sign up for it the next time. But a lot of the time I'm like, good thing I didn't sign up for this one, because like I don't know that we fit everywhere. Like Tragic Fate is very like, it's dark humor, it's macabre, it's sassy and snarky, and we're not afraid to swear, or, you know, like, you know, like it's not like so bad or anything, but sure, it's a bit crass, you know, like most people respond to it pretty well, but it's like, you know, not really for kids, you know? So sometimes like I'll go to like some of these events and I'll be like, oh shit, yeah, good thing I wasn't there, because, you know, my whole shtick is like kind of insulting the customers when they come up to the booth, and like making fun of them, and like taking the piss out of them and giving them a hard time and calling them a cheapskate and you should buy more stuff, and like, what's wrong with you? You didn't buy anything. Like I really like, I put on like this huge shtick that is wrapped around the brand, and the brand is all about, you know,
so it's good to do it at
being
your
silly, you know,
own event.
When it's at your own event, it's a lot easier to do that. At like, you know, I think at places where it is a lot more like grounded, like something like Dropped on Drooler, perfect fit for me. Grandma's Craft Fair, probably not the best place. But you know what? A lot of older people love it. You know, like, I saw a lot of like of our greeting cards, our mean-hearted greeting cards. We call them bleating cards, because that's like, bleating is like whining, like meh. So our little whiny, snarky cards, old people love them. It's like a card culture.
Yeah, I love it. So when are you thinking about doing the next one?
The plan for Mousetrap, and Mousetrap was like a vehicle so that I could find a place to sell the Tragic Fate stuff. And, we worked with Windsor Eats, and that was great. And we did a couple there, and then we wanted to do something bigger and, completely indoors. And we did the one at the Kubota. And yeah, they've kind of getting bigger and bigger. I'm watching the Instagram page. Like every time we do a pop-up, like we've got like 100 more followers, and it's like, oh, and more people come out, and it's like, oh, I can see how in a few years this, could really kind of turn into a thing. And so, yeah, I think seasonally, I don't have the time or the wherewithal to run it. And like, I think that's
a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's good for people to understand in the same way that like, I don't pull a profit from Tragic Fate. Like I don't pull a profit from the Mousetrap either. Like the only opportunity I get from Mousetrap is the same opportunity that every artist involved gets. So like, we had vendor fees at this one at the Kaboto Club. We had vendor fees. I paid a vendor fee too. And I designed the posters, and I put them out around town, and I did all the web promotions and organized all the shit and wrangled all the artists. And like, I'm happy to do that work, but like, I don't want anything for it either. Like, I want to be fair to the people who are part of it. It's like, no. I paid my way to be a part of this too. I'm invested in it as much, probably way more than you are, because I put in an extra 40 hours of work or whatever on top of, the hours being there on the day, or like the money that you paid to be a part of it. But like, yeah, I'm more than happy to put my money where my mouth is, like, and do the work that's necessary. And, yeah, I mean, Mousetrap is that vehicle right now. And for years it was a fan fest, and, I've done lots of things and lots of projects, and I'll put my energy behind things. And so, Tragic Fate is the thing that I'm like kind of really focused on right now. And by extension, the Mousetrap. And, yeah, I say to artists and, art fans alike, make hay while the sun shines. 'Cause like, I'm into it. I'm stoked to do it. And like, it doesn't feel like a job to me. Like I like coming up with the poster designs.
Yeah, you've been promoting it, doing a great job.
I like to walk around town and go say hello to all the local business owners and drop off a poster, and I'll stop and have a beer on the break. Like I'll listen to podcasts all day or music and walk around town and put up posters. Like I'm down for the cause.
Yeah.
And I feel like I always have been, and this is just, what we're working on now.
Yeah. What years did you do FamFest from? The last year was 16, right?
FamFest like kind of it like took a lot of different forms over the years. So we did the first one in 2007.
Jeez.
In January 2007.
I was in grade 6.
Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't at that one, but I did help you with the one in 2016.
You did help me with the one in 2016. I think we did another one in 2017.
Okay.
And then in 2018, I think that was the year the hiatus one. But like, I would say hiatus. I would say like, sure, don't do the FamFest or haven't done it in a few years, but then like I'm doing this Mousetrap thing, which is like not necessarily the FamFest, but like, I don't know.
The FamFest was awesome, and you should try to maybe do it again.
There are a lot of, a lot of people say that to me, and I would want it to maybe try and do it again, but like, I don't know that, and I think part of the reason in 2016, when you helped me do it, that in 2016, I was like, I'm aging out of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm aging out of it, and like, I am not as tight with all the musicians around town because I don't go out as much anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not as active in the scene. Like, and so I was like desperately like trying to find people who would be like, hey, want to do all these hundreds of hours of work for nothing like I have for years? Like, it was like, I kind of looking back at it now, I like realize how foolish that is. Like, if anybody wants to go that distance to try and do something, they probably want to make their own thing. They don't want to take somebody else's thing that they've been doing for years and keep it going. They want to come up with their own idea and make something fresh and make their own name with something, not run somebody else's thing or take the reins on somebody else's thing. Like, I don't know. There's probably work that could have been done to formalize things. You know, back in the day, CJAM wasn't a nonprofit organization. It was just a music appreciation club. It was just a bunch of music nerds sitting around in a room together, listening to records in the 40s.
Yeah.
You know? And then that music appreciation club became, you know, a closed circuit, like kind of like my high school radio, like just in the res building. And then it was campus wide. And then it was on AM radio. And then it was on FM. And now it's a 2,000 watt station. You know, like
yeah,
things grow and change and grow, you know? So like there was probably a time where it would have been like smart to like formalize things in a way and get grants and, you know, but it was all always so DIY. It was always so bootstrapped together and like, you know, working a full-time job and trying to be in a band and trying to make your own art and trying to run this festival. And
were you in a band before?
Oh yeah, I've been in a multitude of bands
in
Windsor over the years. Play? I don't know if that's the right term. I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of different things in different bands. So for years, I fucked around on a Roland MC 303. You know, just fucking with loops and samples that were inside this machine and augmenting them and tweaking them and rearranging them and making these little electronic music tracks under the name Why Me, which are like my initials, but had all these brackets. And it was a terrible, terrible name. I realized after the fact. And then through doing that, for a long time, I collaborated with musicians and a lot of really great musicians like Sally Zori and Steve Ward, to name a couple. Martin Schiller, 87 Things for the Future is the name of his project at the time. Collaborated with a lot of people doing like live performances, mixing my electronic music with live instrumentation. So like Steve Ward we'd play the same songs, but they would be reimagined like completely differently, you know, based on whatever musician was there. And so like Sally was doing hand drums with it. And then the next gig, Steve Ward would be playing like psychedelic trumpet through a bunch of, effects pedals. And then the next show, Martin Schiller would be set up on his own electronic rig. And we were like doing, I don't know, both just making noise at the same time, essentially. So yeah, I kind of like bounce around working with different people like that for a long time. Yep. And then I met my friend Chris Elkar. I was introduced to him by Dave Cant. You know Dave Cant?
He did my first couple of tattoos.
Okay, yeah. He's done some tattoos for me as well. Good friend, longtime friend, and a big contributor to the FamFest over the years. Yeah. And
great guy.
Yeah. I met Chris through him. He kind of encouraged us to play together. He was like, "Hey, it's my birthday. I'm doing an art show. I want you guys to, you know, perform alongside each other. Just do a improv jam. Like, I think it would be a good fit." And he was right. Like, we had a really good time. There was no one there. It was empty. The venue was completely empty. There was like 5 people there or something. It was not a huge turnout, but we had a lot of fun playing together and kept playing together pretty consistently for like, I don't know, 6 months or so. And a lot of people were like starting to ask us to like, "Hey, are you playing? Is Chris going to be playing with you?" And I was just like, "Are you guys a band?" Like, people were asking us if we were a band. And so I think we were like, "Oh, yeah, maybe we should come up with a name and formalize this thing and make it a band." So that was learning. in a band called Learning.
What year was that?
That would have been 2010, 2011,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we played around town, and we recorded a bunch of live albums, and then did like a studio record, which was us renting a gear from Long and McQuaid and like re-rigging the living room where we would usually record with better gear and live recording in a living room instead. And like, I mean, Chris handled all that. Chris is like a musical genius and continues to like be really awesome to this day. Like, he's in a really great band from Detroit called The Armed.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of The Armed.
No.
They're like a longtime Detroit like art punk collective, and he's been a part of it since the early days. And they are like really starting to make waves now. Like they were opening for Queens of the Stone Age this past summer on like their stadium tour.
Oh, sweet.
Like they're a band that is like, you know, really doing things. And not that they weren't doing things back then, they just certainly didn't have the notoriety. But he was in the Armed before we started Learning. So like he would be hopping the border over to Detroit to do the stuff with the Armed. And then like he was living in Windsor at the time, you know, and we were doing the stuff with Learning. And I will forever be super proud of what we did with that band. Like,
is there any stuff out now, like still that you could listen
oh
to?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we didn't tear down. Chris moved to the States. He was in Detroit. We tried to make the band work, you know, living in two different countries, but you know, he's starting a family, and you know, stuff with the Armed is like you know, starting to take shape in a greater and greater way. And there was just, you know, and for me too, my career was kind of shifting and trending in a different direction at the time, and it was just like, certainly there was no ill will, or it wasn't like the band is over, we're breaking up or anything. There was never like the band breaking up, but it just like started to become more and more obvious that it was just like, no, there's no room in our lives, you know, to continue. You know, you don't live here anymore. You don't even live in Michigan anymore. You live on the other side of the country. Like, it's just the ability to continue to make music was just like kind of started to fade away, which is absolutely fine. But the few years that we spent playing shows, and you know, we didn't like ever tour, but we went around, like we did like little 3 or 4 day
That's
little
cool.
rips around the province and played some cool festivals. And a real feather in our cap was our full-length album that we put out. Like, we got it to chart nationally on like the indie charts. So like all the radio stations like CJAM, there's like 50 or 60 of them across the country. And we were like, we charted at enough of them.
Which album was that?
That was the only full-length, the only studio album that we put out, which was called Cant, and it was named after Dave Cant. Because
can I play a song?
What, like right now?
Yeah.
And we're gonna listen to the song in real time.
In real time.
On
yeah.
I guess if you, sure. I mean, I'm not ashamed of it.
I just want to hear what you're talking about.
Yeah, for
they
sure.
Can check it out. What's your favorite song?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to pick favorites of shit that you make. But I mean, I would say the song that was probably most iconic of the band was probably Guns Around Here.
So what is it with all these men with guns?
Yeah,
around
this is it.
Haven't you noticed?
So it's like director's cut. Are we gonna let the audience just
No, you
listen?
can talk if you want to.
Continue to talk over the.
I want to hear it though, but you can talk about it.
Yeah. So I guess if I could say anything about like some of what Learning was, at least at first, was like
Men with guns around.
a lot of these are like tracks that I had been refining and playing for a while at that point. And I would kind of augment the way they would build up and you know, certainly not verses or choruses or anything. It's instrumental music, but there is a pattern and a flow to the way the songs went. And as I started working with Chris, we were like kind of reimagining those things and remolding them, and we spent a good, I'd say like almost 2 years like playing and refining these songs until we got them to like the point that you're listening to right now, which is like the polished version where we were like, this is the distilled version.
Yeah, this is sweet.
But yeah, it's like kind of psychedelic electro rock.
Yeah, it's got like 60s and 80s vibes.
Yeah,
mixed with a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it's like the drum machine itself is pretty old, from the early 90s, utilizing a lot of like synth sounds. It's like an emulator of a lot of synths that were popular throughout the 80s.
Okay.
So like 808s and 909s, and it's got like a collection of like some of the most iconic like synth sounds ever, like all batched into this little work all machine, but it's emulated, so it's like kind of this poor man's version of those super expensive synths. Like, you know, you're talking like a TR 808 bass line. It's like, you know, like
I don't know anything about music.
$5,000.
I just love it.
It's like a very expensive synthesizer, whereas like a 303 is like a $500 unit, you know? So yeah,
I think I've said
you get what you pay for.
I think I've said this on the podcast before, and I love trying different types of art, being creative in different ventures, but music is kind of one thing that I've always just enjoyed and never really got into doing anything with it myself.
You did music photography.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the music scene. I mean, I always think like, I don't know. I mean, that's probably why I enjoy taking pictures of bands so much, because I feel like it has this like value of like this like acts as like an artifact of like, hey, this fucking happened.
Yeah.
This is something fucking awesome that fucking happened in this place. Like, we've got this fucking cool vestige of it in the form of a photograph.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm into that I am not great at the thing, and I use like photography to get in more, and music's one of them. Like getting to be in the backstage and meet a musician, or go on stage with like a famous band. Like, I'm not a musician, I'll never get to do that, but like with my photography has taken me there. Just like with surfing, like I love surfing, but I'm not good by any means, but like with my photos I can, you know, kind of do more with it.
Well, you know, thankfully, I mean, I'm more thankful than, you know, probably anyone, is that you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it. You know, like
that's true.
I'm certainly like very comfortable not being the best at anything at all ever, and I think I've actually made my whole career being kind of all right at a bunch of different things. You know, like I don't need to be the best at anything. If I'm having a good time doing it, and I'm having fun engaging with it, and it interests me, and and the people that I surround myself with while I'm doing it, you know?
Yep, that's all that
like,
matters.
You know,
is
that
fun.
To me is like really, you know, like I do the art stuff to keep me sane, you know? Like I would love to do if Tragic Fate was like my job, that would be amazing. That would be a dream come true. But like, I'm also just very happy to, just to do these things because of the sheer joy and interest and engagement that I get out of it. And then, you know, whatever happens after that is just kind of, you know, that whatever.
I think that's how it should be, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
have fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, what it should be can be different for anyone and everyone. I guess it's all what you want out of something. But for me personally, like, I don't want much out of it. Like I want the enjoyment of doing it, and you know, I want to meet some fun people along the way, and I want to have some laughs, and yeah, you know that band, you know, was so much fun because it was wrapped around my friendship with Chris. Like it would not have been a fun thing to do if it was like, no, we're trying to, you know, make this album big and it's got to be a success. And no, it was about going to Reno's Kitchen for sandwiches and then jamming after, you know, and then having a beer and chatting on the patio for a couple hours about this, that, or the other.
I miss that place.
You know, so yeah, it was like, you know, it was a really fun project. But then I've been in other bands other than that. I was in a band called Sir Daster for a couple of years. They had been a band for like 10 years, and I was just a fan and friends with some of the guys in the bands, and I was at their shows all the time, and they saw me singing from the side of the stage, singing along. And then like at a certain point, I can't even really remember how it happened, like Lewis, who was the singer, he's like, "You gonna sing this with me tonight or what? Come on up here." And like we had such a good time doing it. And then like I think somebody else in the band was like, "So you coming to practice on Tuesday?" I was like, "What do you mean coming to practice on Tuesday?" Like I got pulled out of the crowd to sing along for one song. They're like, no, come to practice, man, it'll be fun. All right, I'll come hang out at practice. And then I'm singing along at practice, and you know, they're like, "Here." They put a tambourine in my hand. They're just like, yeah, just kind of try to mimic whatever he's doing here. Just if you see him hitting the snare, you know, like try to keep up with him. You know, just don't make too much noise and don't put it near the microphone. Sing when we tell you to. But like I hung out with those guys for like a couple of years, and like I was certainly not an important or pivotal part of the band. But I was certainly like. I was like, almost like, I don't know. I remember the first time I saw Queens of the Stone Age, they had like a singer who'd come out, but he'd only come out for like one song or two songs throughout the whole set. He'd come out, he looked high, looked like he was high on drugs, and he would wander out, he'd sing, he'd scream in the mic for a song, and then, he'd wander back off stage for another few songs. And so like I was kind of that guy in the band. I wasn't super fucked up on drugs or anything, but didn't have a lot to do, and so like I had a couple little parts. But towards the end, when we were like, as I was in there with them, if there was anything that I felt like I like contributed to the band, was that I would help with the arrangement. Like when there were only a few songs that I was a part of the writing process from beginning to end. And I don't know how to play guitar or piano or anything. So like I was not, you know, a part of, you know, writing the notes and being like, this is how the riff should be. It's like, no. They came with that to the table. But like, as we were putting this song together, what I felt like I could offer was, hey, remember that part at the beginning? Like, I think that part should go like 20 seconds longer. And like the second guitar player should come in like after the third measure, like let it go a couple times and then let someone come in. And then at the end of the song, we should go back to that part from the beginning, except we should like subtract the guitars instead of like, you know, like I listen to music for a living for a lot of years at CJAM. Mm-hmm. Like I was their music director. So my job was essentially a music librarian. And I listened to something like, you know, when I started working there, I think that we were getting like something like 3,000 albums a year.
Wow.
Like a lot of records. And like I had this like ambition of being like, I want more than that. Like there's more, I know there's way more music than that out there. And so like I started beating down the doors of like other record labels, other promo companies, more local people, like really just trying to like remove the gatekeeping aspects of radio, college radio, like completely, and just teaching people like, yo, this is how we want to receive your music.
Yep.
We're making it real easy for you. So like, here's how to do it. We wrote a book about it. My friend Rosina and I.
Oh,
like,
really?
We wrote like a step-by-step guide for bands to make our lives as like DJs easier.
I love how you've just done everything, every medium,
I've done a lot of shit.
creative space.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just like to do things, and like, I don't care what it is. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's a pin or a sticker or a drawing or a painting or a sculpture or a photo or a book or a event, festival.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make it.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
try
sweet.
and make it,
That's
know?
awesome.
But I mean, I listen to music for a living. And so like, you know, we were getting 3,000 by the time I was leaving CJAM 7 years later, I think we were up to like, we were receiving 4,500 or 5,000 albums a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, I knew what I liked and I knew what sounded good. And I was very zoned in, especially at that time, in terms of like, yeah, this is, you know, like, we want it to grab people, you know, if they're listening to it, like, we want them to engage with it. So what can we change about it to make it do that without knowing how to be like, write the notes or, you know, put it together, but to take what really talented people are doing and then help them to refine it and dial it in just a little further so that it hits home just a little harder,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's like what I did in that band. And then I was a part of a band called Star Trek, the band, which was
sweet.
like a collective of Windsor musicians. It was like James Owell from James Owell of the Villains. He was like needed to, he put this band together to open up a show. He just like kind of wanted to do something different. And yeah, I landed on stage with a bunch of my buddies, and it was like we took episodes of original series Star Trek, like William Shatner, the series, and like ran it through a bunch of effects processors, like both the audio and the video. And then there's a group of people jamming around that, what was happening.
That's sweet. When was that?
Yeah. Jeez, that was also in the early like 2010s.
Okay.
You know, I don't think Star Trek the band has played a show since like 2015 or 2016 or something. And there's like, I think there's like a commonality amongst some of these like projects, like either going dormant or whatever. It's just like age, I guess. You know, like I'm turning 40 in a couple months, and
Wow.
yeah, it's just like people start getting married, people start having kids, people start having careers, people start, you know, like just having more going on than just, you know, it's easy when you're in your 20s and, you know, you're like, yeah, I don't, you know,
Yeah.
party all the time and just go to shows all the time. You don't have like the responsibilities of a mortgage and, you know, all these like things that are like, oh shit, like I can't just make art all the time.
Yeah.
I gotta, you know.
Good to find balance.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? And so yeah, I think there was this probably a time that a lot of friends around my age or whatever, just like life changes, and it's like, yeah, 2016, 17, 18, it's like, oh yeah, so things started to slow down. Oh, pandemic. Everything stopped completely. But now I see like everyone is like starting to like re-emerge a little bit.
Yeah.
For like as quickly as everything shut down, I think like things coming back to normal the way they were, you know, before the pandemic, like I think that is like a longer process, and I think we're getting closer and closer to it like all the time. But I've always said like the Windsor scene, and I'm sure, I mean, I have more experience in the Windsor scene than any other city's scene, so it's really the only one that I can speak for. But I would assume that it's like this in all sorts of cities, is that there's like waves, you know, like I remember when we were doing the Fan Fest, because like for years I felt like I had like my finger on the pulse for like a good almost, you know, decade long. It was like I was really paying attention to everything that was going on, and like there was like an apex. There was like a point. There was like a couple year couple years where it was like, maybe it was like 2010 or 11, where it just like there were more active bands and things going on and more active venues. Like,
yeah, that's one
we had
thing
more
that's-
spaces. There was like, there was a time where like the Loop building was completely functional, all 3 floors. So there were essentially 3 venues,
Milk.
you know, happening there. Milk was also open. TBX was also open. Fog was open. Villains was open. Craft Heads was open. They weren't really doing shows in those days, but you could still do a show there. Like FanFest did shows there. So like there were 8 venues, you know, like all operating like where you could have bands playing, all within a very close area of each other. And now there's just not as many venues. And so by proxy, I feel like there's not as many bands, but that's not necessarily true. Like there's also the fact that, you know, like I was saying, I've aged out of it. I don't go out as much.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you the last time I went to like an open mic night at any bar. Like I
I know.
I feel like those days are like, and it's not like it's like I
should go tonight
above it or anything. It's just hard to keep that schedule, you know, like a lot of those nights start at 10 p.m.
I know.
And I'm like winding down and I have to be up at 7 for work, you know, like, so it's like, yeah, it's easier when you're younger, or I guess it's easier depending if you have the type of career that allows you to, you know, be up super late into the night.
When I was
drinking
in college,
every night.
like you could show up to college.
As
First
I
of all, you're
drink my nog.
first of all, when you're in college, you're young and you don't really feel it. But like you can show up to class tired and hungover and all this stuff. But like work, you could, but then you're just like annoyed at yourself. You know, it makes your day more annoying. But like I'm always down on myself for like not going to these things more. And I try to go to as many as I can, but
Yeah, you know,
harder the older you get.
it's all we got a phone blasting off.
Yeah, I want to make sure the camera battery's good. Want to take a 1 second break?
Yeah, we can take a pause.
Yeah, let's take a pause. All right, so yeah, we're back. Took a little break.
Yeah, I had to take off that Santa Claus. You might notice, the viewers at home, that I switched to my patented black baseball cap.
Okay, this is cool. Murad's Low Life from Craft Heads.
Yep. Yes.
That's sweet. Is this part of Tragic Fate Co, or is this just something?
No, this is definitely part of Tragic Fate Co. This is they're one of the people that we don't just collaborate with artists.
Yeah.
We collaborate with makers of all kinds, and we've been collaborating with Craft Heads like since our outset. They were actually like during the pandemic, because Tragic Fate launched during the pandemic. And so they made the Pouty Stout. And then they also made a Luckless Lager. And we made the Tragic Fortune Cookie Blonde, which we brewed with actual fortune cookies.
Sweet.
And then it had a peel and reveal label that said like, fuck you underneath. Yeah, we've done a lot with them. This is our 4th beer with them over the last, Tragic Fate's like 3 years old since we launched.
It's been, really?
Yeah, we launched in like August 1st, 2020.
Wow.
And, that was a weird fucking time. And like even the summer afterwards was also still a weird fucking time. Like, so like I was doing stuff, but I wasn't doing like a lot of events and that. I just kind of felt weird about it. And I don't know, it was just such a weird time. Got pretty insular, but I was like, I'm still going to make the stuff, and I sold a lot online. And so I was just like, I'll just put it in the mail. And doesn't mean I can't collaborate with people. Doesn't mean I can't still make things available, even though that like, doing events wasn't really like, some people were still doing I know the farmer's market was still going on to an extent, but it just felt weird.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't want to stand around like everyone's like scared or like uncomfortable or whatever. I was just like, I'll just hang out at home instead.
Yeah.
But now, like in the last year, I think people are like, oh, wow. Like they think it's newer than it is, maybe because in the last year, it's like we've been doing a lot.
And the Mousetraps have been.
Yeah, we've been doing the Mousetraps, we're doing other pop-ups and like pop-up rock and roll shows. And I just think there's like more hype behind it. Like the more events that we do and the bigger settings that we're in, more people see it and more people are talking about it. And it's just like, yeah, like it just kind of, it's, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
Like things just pick up momentum. And so certainly this is like the biggest year for us yet. And like, I'd like to keep this trend up. Like I don't have all the time in the world to do Tragic Fate stuff or anything, but like, you know, doing an event every month or two and coming out with new items every 6 months or so is like kind of the, you know, kind of the goal. And so, yeah, you know, getting to collaborate with artists is one really awesome thing, but then like getting to collaborate with like makers and like these guys at Craft Heads who are the best. And worked with Ryan over at Chance Coffee. We did this
Ryan
dark
since I was
roast.
like a year old.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So Ryan is also super talented coffee roaster in the city at Chance Coffee, and went to him and said, hey, I've got like, I want to make a dark roast, like dark, like your soul, like black coffee, you know, like I want Tragic Fate to have a coffee. And so he was like, you know, we don't usually do a dark roast. And I was like, would you do it? And he was like, all right, we'll do it. So, and you know, and of course they did it and it's fantastic and people love it. And, so that's cool. And then, yeah, we got some other collabs like in the wings. We're working with a hot sauce maker in Hamilton.
That's sick.
To make like a Tragic Fate hot sauce. So.
You know what works out for you with your superstition or non-superstitions is this is episode 13.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I guess it worked out.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Maybe me talking about Tragic Fate. Tragic-fate.com. Maybe that'll be like, wow, 13. I'm just like, maybe it'll be good luck. Or like,
well, I'm Italian, so it is good luck.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, the hope is that we'll go viral or something and everyone will be like, Tragic Fate.
Let's do it.
You've got like, what, 10 million listens a month?
I like anything over 10 is good with me.
10,000.
Just 10.
Oh, just 10. Oh, okay. Hey, you know what?
So we can get 20 now.
Hey, we can get 20.
No,
hey, I saw your
get a couple
Spotify.
hundred.
I saw your Spotify Wrapped. I know you're pulling numbers.
You know what's funny is some episodes perform great on. So like the podcast is on iHeart, Google Podcast, Apple Music.
Oh wow, you really went the whole 9 yards with this thing.
Well, the nice thing is you just post it once, and then it posts it everywhere.
Like DistroKid or something?
I use actually just like I do. So you can do like Podbean or any of these hosting ones, and it'll post everywhere.
Okay.
But if you do it just directly through Spotify, it will also post everywhere.
Huh.
So I post it right to Spotify, and then it automatically throws it on
And it just
Apple
feeds
Music,
it out
everywhere else.
It needs to go.
But all our numbers come from Spotify and YouTube. Like Apple Music, we get a few, but and it's funny because like your episode could be like, this is like average numbers for this podcast. Like you could have 80 listens on Spotify and 50 on YouTube, or you could have 100 on YouTube and like 30 on Spotify. And it seems to me that everybody's is different.
Well, you know, there's probably like part of that dynamic is like who's on the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like their friends and family and the people who are interested in checking them out, like what platforms do they use to engage with a podcast. Maybe some of them just go straight to Spotify. Maybe some of them, they the link is shared on Facebook or something. Here, go to the YouTube page. It's like, I always say, if there was like a perfect recipe for a lot of this shit, then we'd be rich. We wouldn't be sitting around here talking about, I wonder how it works. I'd be like, no, you know how it works, and you'd be loaded, and you wouldn't be talking about it because you'd be like, we're doing it. I don't know. Fuck it.
So like the last episode, 12, which was with Leanne, she's a YouTuber.
Yeah, I watched that episode.
Oh, you did? Mm-hmm. So all her views are YouTube. And she messaged me. She's like, it's doing really good on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, well, joke's on you because it's doing shit on Spotify. No, I'm just kidding.
Is she related to Farah?
Yeah, that's her little sister.
Oh, okay. That's Farah's sister.
Yeah, Leanne's.
Because Farah was a CJAM DJ for many years.
Oh, cool.
So I know Farah, like, from coming up at CJAM together.
Oh, sweet.
And so I was watching. I was like, she kind of looks like Farah. Has the same last name as Farah.
Yeah,
maybe they're related. Okay.
Yeah, they're sisters.
Yeah. That was a great episode.
Thanks. Yeah, Leanne's a good friend of mine.
I could tell you guys. You guys had some history.
Yeah. So she, I've done
not forgotten history like ours.
Yeah, I've done her like family photos and stuff. So I've met Farah a few times.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't we used to do some stuff together years ago, but I haven't done much with you in a while. But again,
we were joking before is that we went to college together, and you were like,
yes.
You went to college with me? And I was like, yes, I was in your class. I sat beside you in media ethics.
I can say it now because it's finally official, but I'm actually teaching there next semester.
Oh, wow. Hey, congratulations.
Thanks.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Wow, big man on campus.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Oh, wow, you should be.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Thanks.
Holy moly. Not just a pretty face, huh?
I had my meeting today, actually, but I've kind of like known since September.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to say anything until it was,
Yeah, you let things firm up. I'm bad for that. Is it I'll have something in the wings or a project, and I'm like, I just get excited, and I can't help but talk about it. And I've been trying to rein myself in because, yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, shit goes another way and it doesn't actually end up panning out.
Yeah.
Like, I've got an iron in the fire right now for a really awesome project that I'm so excited about. But it's not a done deal.
Yeah.
So I can't really talk about it yet, but I'm just like, ooh, it's so close I can taste it. And I'm so excited about it. And I'd love to tell everyone about it. This is a really great opportunity, but it's not. Yeah, I have to rein in my excitement sometimes and my enthusiasm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know, and when things don't work out, I never look at it as like a failure or anything, but...
Oh, no.
But you don't want to I don't know. Talk about...
Failure is a funny thing. Indifference is strength. In the sense that failure seems like a big deal until you realize that nothing matters and everything is meaningless.
Okay, that's not a bad way to look at it.
It's just in the grand scheme of things, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know. I'll find myself stressing out about tragic fate something or some sort of project or the last Mousetrap. I was in the last week leading up to it, I was like, oh man, I really hope this goes good. And I was I was really beating the drum, just I want this thing to be good. And I have to remind myself all the time, nothing matters, dude. This doesn't actually really matter. It's a thing you're doing and you're doing it for fun. It's an art project, and yes, of course you want it to go well.
Of course.
You want it to be a success. You want it to be good for all the people involved. But in the grand scheme of things, it's hey man, if there's 30 people there, or if there's 50 people there, or if there's 80 people there, what are you really gonna remember 6 months from now? you know, like let's look at the big picture here. You know, like don't sweat it too much on like, oh, there's only 34 people through the door, and it's like, I don't know. There are lots of times, and I think it just came from years of like putting on events and shows where I was really kind of stressed out, or sometimes just even heartbroken that like the band played to no one, or that it didn't go as well as I wanted it to, or like, you know what I mean? Yeah, because like I've put on literally, like, sure, it's some of them within the scope of a festival, but like there were plenty of nights of the Fam Fest where we had like 6 independently operating shows with like 3 or 4 bands playing at each of them. Yeah. So like we'd have like 20 some odd bands playing in town on the same night, as being a part of the same event.
That's why it was the coolest
but
thing.
Essentially like their own little shows going on, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know, there's always one that just didn't have the turnout that you would want them to, or, you know, you realize that like, you know, you should have put the bands you put at one venue at the other and swapped it, or, you know, like, you know, I just try not to beat myself up over this stuff, and like I just try to like do the best I can, and you know, give it my full diligence, and try to put a certain, you know, amount of care into the stuff that I'm doing, but then not get too wrapped up in the like, you know, how many people actually came, or like how successful it was. Like it's all a spectrum. You know,
as long as you try your best, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, have a good time, and just like like I said, you know, nothing really matters, and
learn from the small little things.
Everything's meaningless, and indifference is strength. If you learn to like not care, I think not caring is kind of a positive thing. It doesn't seem like it should be. But if you don't care, then it's easier to just like go ahead and just do it. Like if you don't care what the result of this is, then you can just go into it and give it what you're going to give it and see how it goes. We'll find out at the end, you know? But yeah, it's art is really a tough thing. Like, it's not easy, and it's like, you know, it's a real love of the game type shit. You know, you gotta be into it. Yeah, you really gotta be down for the cause.
Yeah,
I gotta finish this nog.
Go for it. You don't have to finish it though. I won't feel bad.
I like it.
You know what? I gotta be honest with you. That's the first time I've ever had eggnog.
Really?
Yeah.
You said in your whole life?
In my whole life, you said you wanted eggnog, and I was like, okay.
Well, I was like, we're gonna do the Christmas edition. We should have some nog and wear the Santa hats. We had the Santa hats, and I was like, yeah, spiced rum in the nog. I mean,
I got that rum in Cuba actually,
because I'm gonna bring the lowlifes, and like, I mean, it's no secret to I guess anyone who knows me is that, you know, I enjoy a libation. You know,
it's I want to talk about one. I still remember this 2015. Fall 2015 at DH Fam Fest. Mm-hmm. You had Tony Coates play, Hutch, and Ivory Hours from London. And it was
there was another band that played that night too.
Oh, I'm sure there was.
Yeah, there was like a 4th band on that bill. I can't remember the name of them, but
I found Ivory Hours that night. Bought their CD, still a fan. They're not together anymore, but they ended up playing with Hutch like a few months later for their first release of their EP. Anyway, that night was so much fun. I think it was like a weekday night too. It might have been a weekend.
That was a Sunday. Yeah, it was a Sunday night. Yeah.
Me and my best friend went, and we hung out and listened to them, and I shot some photos there, and they're probably bad photos, but I still remember that night. It was wicked.
Hey, I remember that night too. I think Goodnight Sunrise played that night.
Where are they from?
They had from Toronto.
Okay.
I think they had the Keytar. Do you remember a Keytar?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
saw
dude.
photos of them.
Dude, that was Goodnight Sunrise,
I
who
bet
are
you.
still playing to this day and are a super awesome band.
I like
Super
that.
cool.
You remember that. I bet you I can pull up photos from that night.
I remember that night very clearly.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I don't know, we were having fun. We were having fun, and there was actually a play.
What month would it? August or?
No, this would have been in the fall. Would have been like September or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been like, yeah, I can't remember the exact year of it, but
September.
that's the thing. It all starts to blur together when you put on so many of those shows like that. But there was a play that we did at Mackenzie Hall
Yep.
earlier in the day, like a
Fine.
theatrical performance, and then afterwards there was the show at the DH, and it was like, yeah, we're doing a West Side thing. Go see the play that we produced with who was it? Caitlin and Daniela and their crew. They had a name for their little theater collective. But yeah, we got to do some really cool stuff with the Fan Fest.
Yeah, it was so cool.
And that originated from the
show you this
exact same. Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's her. Yes.
Yeah.
Good night, sunrise.
All my photos are on lock.
the Fan Fest, it originated in the same way that like the Mousetrap did, and what we were talking about, this concept of like putting yourself amid the other makers in town and the other creators in town in the hopes of people taking notice of the work you did. So when I first started the Fan Fest, I was living with my good friend Ben Younghart, and he was a filmmaker in town. He was studying at the university, and he was making short films, and he needed a place to screen his short films. I was in the early days of performing music and making music, and had my little beat machine going, but I hadn't really like played anywhere or had, certainly didn't have any, nobody knew who I was or anything. And so we were both really just trying to get our name out in the community. And as people who were very new to the community, like had only been living here for a year or so, or a couple years, it's like we didn't have like the long time connections to the local scene. And we kind of came up with this concept, which was like, hey, let's invite all of our favorite acts around town, because whether or not we were like a part of the community, we were certainly like fans of the community. So no one knew who we were, but we knew who they were. And so we just went knocking on doors like, oh, we like this band, we like this rapper, we like this filmmaker, we like this artist, visual artist, or any type of artist. And we would just find people on MySpace and just and message them and just be like, hey, we're putting on this event, and we're trying to make this thing happen. And I found some people around town who are willing to throw a bit of support behind it, and the university was like really supportive of it. And it became this little kind of beast. We did the first one, which was like kind of like a surprise hit, like even to us, like we didn't expect it to go the way that it did. Like hundreds of people came out. It was like we won an award from the university,
Wow.
like event of the year, and like it was like a kind of it made a big splash the first year. And then we did it again the second year, which was the same year. We did it at the university again. We learned a hard lesson, is like the first year we did it, the University of Windsor Students Association was very supportive and gave us funding and like really just kind of helped us make it happen. And they loved it, and they gave us the award, event of the year, whatever. And then we went to plan the one the following year, and it's an elected council of people. So like all the people who loved our event, funded our event, helped us make it happen, gave us the award, they all like moved on.
Yeah.
They weren't on this council anymore. And so we like planned the whole entire festival with the understanding that we were going to get the support from this like student association again, and didn't. Like, just the people who got elected that year, they're like, nah, we're not interested in that. Nah, we don't want to support that. Like, we're giving you no funding. And like Ben and I both, like on the second festival, just like straight up just went out of pocket. Like, we had such little money, but just like hundreds of dollars out of pocket to like make the event still happen, because like we were in too deep at that point. We had booked all the bands. We had like, we were just, the posters were printed, like, you know, like there was no getting out of it. It wasn't like I was like, we can't cancel this thing now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, it was what it was, but, that one went really well too. And it was like an even bigger hit. And like, despite the fact that we like ate it financially, the both of us, yeah, it was a good event. But that kind of soured us to the idea of doing it at the university. We were just like, you know, if the support that we're going to get is going to hinge solely on whatever kids get elected this year, then, you know, it's hard to plan an event that way. Yeah. And that's when we started reaching out to the venues downtown. And then in all reality, we started thinking like, well, wait, like these are the venues that are hosting these type of events year round already, you know, like why wouldn't we do it in those spaces?
Yeah.
You know? And so we started working with the venue owners to do it. And then, you know, like we were always like trying to work in the interest of like do well by the venues, but to work in the interest of the artists, you know? And so like started getting pushier over the years, like with venue owners, like being like, hey, we want 15% of everything you sell. Like if we're putting on this free show here and we're getting all these bands to play for free, well then like we want 1% of what the booze you sell so that we can use that money to pay for the bands, like to divvy up that money amongst these bands who are like playing for free, you know, like we got to find a way to pay these guys. Like if we're putting on the show for free and they're playing for free, but the bar's has a full house and selling beers all night, like we need to create like a level of equity. I'm not sure if we ever actually reached it, but you know, like there was like an auspices of like, and there were a couple of years where it's like, we got a grant, and then the grant like gave like a base level of money, like for all performing artists, you get $100, like straight up. And then 1% of the percent, you know, like, but we were always like, and continue to like, I say we, it's just me. Because Ben, you know, and I ran the first 2 fan fests together, and then he moved back to Toronto, and then it was just me. And I had people help me out over the years, yourself included. But like really taking the reins of the whole thing. You know, it's just like...
Yeah, I just drove you around.
Yeah, you helped. I remember,
picked up a U-Haul.
Dude, yeah, that U-Haul, I mean that was a huge day. Like
we went to Long and McQuay. We went everywhere.
Dude, we picked up gear. We picked up linens. We picked up all the supplies. Everything we needed to make it happen, dude.
That was so long ago.
Yeah, that was like 8 years ago, 7 years ago.
Probably 7.
But that was the year where I really started feeling like, after doing the Fan Fest in a bunch of different ways. So like the first time we did it, it was a 1-day event from noon till midnight or something, you know? Okay. And then the second year we did it, it was like, you know, it was all day again, but we had more stages. And then the year after that, the first year we did it downtown, I think it was like a weekend where we were like, films on Friday, arts on Saturday, and music's on Sunday. Huge mistake. But it was like a learning experience. Yeah. I was also like this kid who's like 22 years old or like 23 years old. Like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just like, flying by the seat of my pants. But we started to get like the hang of it. And like we did a bunch of different iterations. I mean, there were times where we were like, we're going to just do 10 days straight, weekend to weekend. Like, you know, start on a Friday, end on a Sunday, the following Sunday. Like, not the one of that weekend, but the one of the next weekend, and have events every day of the week.
Yeah.
You know, like, and yeah, pack more events onto the Friday and Saturdays on the weekends, but then have smaller auxiliary events happening, you know, on those other nights. And then we did ones where it was like every weekend in October. You know, I did it.
Yeah, I remember that.
We did a bunch of different iterations of it and presenting it in different ways. But I think the biggest year, I can't remember which year it was exactly, it might have been like 2012 or 2013 or something, but there was like, it ballooned. It got fucking huge, like 100 bands or something.
Jeez.
Like 30 of which were not from Windsor. Like, to the point where like touring bands were starting to play the festival, where it was like, even though the festival didn't pay as much as like a regular like $5 or $10 show would or whatever, there would be like bands that were on tour where their touring manager would be like, can you get these guys on like one of your FanFest slots, just because like we know that there's going to be a lot of people in the room and like they're going to be in the area, like they should.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want this to compete with what's already going on. Like, can they be a part of it? And so, like, yeah, I mean, I think in its biggest year, we had like 100 bands and like 80 artists and 30 or 40 short films.
Jeez.
And a fashion show and a theatrical performance. And like it was just like, it ballooned to, and poetry nights and like art jams, and like, where it was like literally involved like hundreds of people in the community, and it was just like, it's a fucking beast, man. more than like, you know, like the ability to keep up with that and to keep up with that many people and to stay that engaged with the scene is like, you know, nothing lasts forever, you know, like it's and I did it for as long as I could, and I might do it again, but I don't know if I'll ever get it back to being 100 bands and 80 artists.
Time now too.
Yeah, I don't know that there are the venues enough venues to actually support a festival of that magnitude.
There's, of the venues you used to use, there's only 3 left.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
DH, Fog, and Villains. Now you got Meteor.
Yeah, and Craft Heads.
Oh, and Craft Heads.
Craft Heads is there too. Yep. You know.
Yeah. So there's.
But there were other auxiliary places, like people who were down for the cause, like a guy like Mark Pascario.
Yeah.
Who, you know, it's no longer with us, but like had such a huge impact on the scene. Like, he was letting us do film screenings at the Snack Barbecue, and and he was also like quietly helping fund the FanFest. Like, there were a lot of times where that guy would like be like, oh, he'd see me out postering or whatever, or hear an interview or something, and he'd be like, oh, I saw you're working on that FanFest stuff. He's like, you need some help? And I was like, yeah, dude, of course. Yeah, you know, we always need help. He's like, come by the restaurant and I'll have something there for you. And okay, and you know, stop by the restaurant. And it's just like an envelope full of cash, like $1,000 in it.
Jeez.
Like, spend it on posters, spend it on whatever you guys need. And it's like, yeah, that's how like I topped up the band payments on the shows that didn't pull in quite as much. And that's like how we paid for those extra posters to, you know, get the word out a little bit more. Like, there were a lot of quiet supporters like that.
That guy was what a big loss for our community.
Oh yeah, man. But like, you know, the kind of like, you know, is a huge loss. But like the kind of impact that somebody like that makes is like kind of reverberates like longer than their life does, because we're still talking about him now, all these 6 years later. years and years later, being like, this guy made a big impact. More people need to be like that. Like, when I think about like, you know, like I'm beating my head against the wall doing like a lot of this community based work, because that's what it really is. Like, whether it's this stuff with Mousetrap or whether it's with FanFest or whether it's with CJAM, it's all really community driven, about trying to better the community and bring people together and do something positive, and something fun, and share, all the talent, creativity that exists around here. And that is a guy who truly put his fucking money where his mouth was.
Yeah.
Like he really was down for the cause, and he was not afraid to, and I mean, he was affluent. He had the ability to, and if I'm ever, to attain that level of wealth, I would hope that I would be like that too, that I would be pulling aside, younger people who are trying to make a difference in their community and saying, here's a few $100, like use it how you think is best to try and make what you're doing happen. Yeah. And, that's something I'll always appreciate. And he's not the only one, but he's certainly one that comes to mind, because it wasn't just once that he did that. There was like a lot of years where the FanFest might not have happened if he didn't step in and help us out. There's a lot of people or it would have just came out of my pocket, and then I would have become more frustrated, and maybe I just would have stopped it earlier than I did, Yeah. And not that I ever really stopped it. It always kind of morphed, Sure, it morphed in the ways that the festival was run, but sure, I'm not putting the energy behind the FanFest, but I'm starting to put energy behind the Mousetrap, which again is like, to me, an extension of like what the FanFest was all about, is just getting creative people together, putting them in the same room, and and letting the magic happen,
I think I'm gonna do another locals only, which is the show I've been throwing at Fog since 2017. I've done 3. I did one earlier this year in March. Maybe I'll do one in like I've never done a January show, and nothing ever happens in January.
Yeah, January's a good month. We're doing a show in January.
You are?
Yeah, we're doing a show, A Tragic Fate, another rock and roll pop-up show. So we're popping up at the DH. Sweet. And we've got a couple really awesome bands playing. Bruta Bytalk.
Are you working with Sheila and Eamon on that?
No.
No, just you?
No, it's just me.
Sweet.
We put on this Friday the 13th show at Craft Heads, and we always do. It's like our Christmas. Okay. It's Tragic Fate's Christmas is Friday the 13th. And so our last Friday the 13th, we put on this show with Mall Crimes from London and the debut of a new Windsor band called Brain Rust. And it was a fucking awesome night. And we had so much fun. And my friends got married that night too. And so like we came from the wedding, my wife and I, and we were shit-faced, for lack of a better term. We were 3 sheets to the wind, but the show went off without a hitch somehow. Sweet. In spite of that. Good thing we were in charge only. But yeah, so the show was great. And at the show, one of my favorite musicians in the city, Jason Drummond, came up to me and was like, hey man, this is an awesome show. Like, you want to do a show with us? And I was just, yeah. Okay, he's got a new band called Bruta Bytalk. And Jason Drummond, he was one of the members of 50 Watt Head, and drummer from that band, and himself, along with a couple other musicians, all come together to make this new band, Bruta Bytalk. And they've got 3 full-length albums on Spotify right now. Wow. But they have not played a live show.
Really?
And so, yeah, he was like, do you want to put on our first show? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll make the poster.
Do the date yet or no?
Pardon?
Do the date?
Oh, yeah, January 20th at the Dominion House. And we're putting out the posters the next week or 2. And Bog Moss is opening up the night. And they've got a new record that just came out or is just coming out in the next few days. And so, like, 2 really great, loud, heavy Windsor bands with new music. And it should be a lot of fun.
So Anthony from Bog Moss, his other band's Paul the Taylor, which is with him, Lucas and Dante. They're like a staple of the locals only show. So they've played everyone now. Now I kind of like always have to have them play.
Well, yeah, sometimes tradition just like, it's like why I have to throw a Friday the 13th party at Craft Heads every year. It's just like, no, we have to make a beer and we have to throw some sort of event at Craft Heads. Yeah. Like that's what we do. That's what we do on Friday the 13th.
If I did a locals only in January or in February, whatever, would you want to pop up the Tragic Fate stuff?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I guess the challenge with the locals only show is that the whole the show is taken over by the artists involved.
Yeah. So
it's a tough event to pop up at. Because you pop up at an event, but it's just like everybody else is your co-artist, so it's like
co-artist.
Yeah, so you don't want that. You're not like like give me your money. It's like they're like, hey man, I'm trying to sell my shit. I give you my money.
Which like that is the good thing about locals only.
Well, it's fun to bring everyone together, but it's just like we make art that is like handheld, right? It's like it's not like a painting on a wall that is like can be exhibited. So it's like kind of a different animal. Yeah. But I mean, I'll just come and have some beers and hang out.
Because I remember I had Derek from Bogmoss. He popped up at Locals Only 2 with Hookie. Remember he was doing that?
Oh, yeah. Derek's my homie.
You can ask Derek how it went and if you want to do it
Derek is also one of, is like a Tragic Fate associate.
Oh, okay, sick.
Yeah, he helps me out. Like, he came down to Hamilton with me when we popped up there for like a punk rock flea market. And
cool.
I'm a big fan of Derek. He's an awesome guy, and we've been working together for years. And so like a lot of times when I'm doing my Tragic Fate stuff, it's like, and I need an extra set of hands. He's the guy. He's the first guy I always call for sure.
We found out we were like 8th cousins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, which is funny.
That's something that never happens to me because my family immigrated here and we're like the only ones.
Where's your family from?
We're the only Erzinclioglus from Egypt.
I thought so. I thought I remembered that.
You got a Turkish background too, but like, mostly like Egyptian.
Have you been?
Yeah, I went when I was like a little kid. I was like 3 years old. So like a lot of like my first memories of life are being in Egypt.
That's sweet.
Like, but like shit that a little kid would remember.
Yeah.
So like, I remember riding that donkey and like being scared of the camel. I remember seeing the pyramids, but that's it. Like I can just like kind of see myself seeing them.
Yeah.
I remember my uncle swinging me up by the chandelier. Like I said, like these little flashes of like what a kid would remember, just like, it's like not anything of substance, but like, my wife and I were talking about, going, sometime in the next few years. I still have a lot of family there. And there's just so much history there and,
it's like the most,
but just like, culturally, like, I'm certainly like, proud of like my heritage and everything, but just like I also like feel like culturally like I'm a lot different than most Egyptian people in Egypt, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not religious or like
what primary religion do they practice there?
Oh yeah, now? it's like primarily a Muslim country. I mean, there's plenty of Christians and stuff there too, but for the most part, it's like a Muslim country. And and my parents would identify as Muslims too, but they didn't really raise us that way. They kind of just raised us in such a way. It was like be good people.
Yeah.
You don't need a book to tell you to what rules to follow. Like, be a good person. If you want to find religion, do that on your own. But like, it's just like, the morals are, they didn't take us to mosque or like church or anything like that.
Seems every
like
religion boils down to that at the
right?
Well, just be a good person.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm really thankful that we weren't really raised super religiously and that we were kind of left to just like kind of have our own outlook and view on the world. And like, my parents are like really fucking cool for that. Like, I think, like, I think my dad, like, maybe a year ago, we were talking about it, and he was just like, you know, religion is something you should choose for yourself. Like, that's not something that somebody should tell you that this is how you should feel, you know? And it's just because it's how I feel, it doesn't mean that that's how my kids should have to feel.
Yeah.
They should feel however they want. If they want to learn about it, it's easy to go out there and learn their thing. And so, like, I don't think a lot of people get that opportunity. I think a lot of people are kind of indoctrinated from a pretty young age in terms of, like, no, this is what it is, you know? And so, yeah, I think my parents are just really super cool for, like, just letting us, you know, take on the world on our own terms and just, you know, have our own understanding of things. And, you know, it's just like, yeah, they're chill.
I think too many people use religion to hate, which is
such for sure. And I mean, you know, like you were saying, it's like, you know, when you boil all these religions down, it's like, you know, it's like about being a good person. It's like, yeah, when you boil down certain parts of it, it's like, but then when you boil down other parts of it, there's a lot of fucked up shit, you know, like, I don't know. There's not many things that were written thousands of years ago that still hold up completely. And I would say that, you know, religious texts are not, are also a part of that, you know, like, it's just like, yeah, there's some crazy shit in all these books, you know.
I always saw this years ago, and I think on this a lot. And it said, if you hate somebody who's not harming anybody else because of your religion, you're doing it wrong. And I've always thought that way about it.
Well, you'd hope that people would be that open-minded.
But they're not.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem, you know, but we digress. This is supposed to be about art and shit, man. This is getting way too real.
It's funny how it got into that.
Oh my God. Where is this conversation going?
Let's go back to traveling.
Yeah, let's go back to traveling and having fun. Yeah, I mean, nothing matters.
I travel a lot, and I just seem to always hit North or Central America. I stay on this side of the world. I can't sit still, and I don't know if I could do this. Fucking plane rides. But I need to get over there, and Egypt would be high on that list.
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite places I've ever been is Africa, not Egypt, because I was so young while I was there. I mean, I did appreciate and do appreciate having memories of being there, but in 2018, actually, I was mentioning how I was in Asia and I was shooting those cats. Prior to being in Asia, I was in Africa for a couple weeks in Tanzania.
Sweet.
Went on safari and like went through the Serengeti and like saw lions and rhinos and hippos and elephants and giraffes and shit, just in their natural element. And yeah, it was fucking incredible. Like there's just like there's nothing like it. Like I if there's like a place where I'd be like, oh, you go overseas, like, it's just like an experience like no other. And I don't think like that's going to be around forever either. Like environmentally, the way things are going, it's like, it's sad to say, but like, the opportunity to see those animals in that type of environment, it might not, you know, might not be around a few generations from now. And so like, yeah, to me, that was like one of the most incredible places I ever been. But yeah, I loved Asia too, Thailand and Cambodia.
Thailand's been high on my list for a while. Same with like Bali, Indonesia.
Oh man, if it was up to me and Chantal, that's my wife, we'd be, you know, we would not have to work at all, and we would just travel around and experience the beauty of the world for 2 weeks at a time, and then come home and hang out with our cats, and then go back out a month later for another couple of weeks and just like see the entire world. Like I love being anywhere that I haven't been. It doesn't even need to be somewhere iconic. Like it can just be a town that I've never been to. If I've never been somewhere, it's like the most interesting thing to me. I just like love being in a new place and trying new things and meeting new people and seeing the art that's there and the vistas and the animals and the food and the culture. It's just like traveling is like the it's the thing, man.
That's
like,
it. That's what life's about for me.
It's one of my favorite things is just to be somewhere that's not here with Shan. That's somewhere that's not here with Shan, and then after a couple weeks of that, coming home.
I love coming back
and coming home and being here. Like I think maybe I have like a 4-week threshold. Is like
that's long.
After about 4 weeks, I would like need to come home.
That's long. I got like, anytime I've done more than 10 days, by day 10, I'm always like, fuck, let's go home.
Yeah, by the 10th day, I want to go home. But then like, by the 14th day, then I'm kind of like, I wish I had a couple more days,
I feel that. I've done a few 2-weekers, 15-dayers, 16-dayers, but lately, every trip I've done this year was all 7 days, and I loved it. I've been happy with just the 1-weekers, but it depends where you go. Like anytime I've ever gone to Central America, I've always done 10 to 15 days, just because it's actually not that far. It's a shorter plane ride than like California, but I don't know.
It's more affordable there a lot of the time too.
Yeah, it's so cheap. Like when I started traveling when I was 21, and I was in Myrtle Beach on like a family trip. And I took a surf lesson. I met this guy, and we're just talking, and he was like, I own this place in Nicaragua with my buddy. And he's like, I'll give you a card. You should go. So 5 months later, I text my buddy. I was like, you want to go to this fucking place? Like we've never, I don't know anything about that country. We just went. So fuck it. So we booked it, and we flew down there for like $180 on Spirit, just a backpack. And
oh yes. The Greyhound of the skies.
Yes. And this hostel was only $10 a night back then. So for 10 days, it was
$100. Beauty.
And I've been back to that place 3 times.
Amazing.
That's my favorite country that's like outside of.
Yeah, James Owell, who's a fantastic musician. I'm sure he's probably on your list of Windsor creatives to chat with. We're really good friends. We lived together for years. He spent a few months in Nicaragua and wrote a whole record while he was out there. And like, he's a big fan as well. And our friend Caleb went and visited him out there as well. He's the drummer in the Villains. And so, they had the full experience down there and spoke very highly of being out there. And I'd love to see it.
The locals and the people are so nice. It's one of the poorest countries in Central America, but it's also one of the safest, which is cool. And just like I've been to Costa Rica, and it's too like American holiday down there, and Nicaragua is not like that. It's all locals, and I always judge places by like how much a beer costs. So in Nicaragua, a beer at a bar is $1, and in Costa Rica, when I went, this was a couple years ago, so I'm sure it's went up, but in Costa Rica was $3.
Yeah,
which in turns mean everything is 3 times as expensive.
Yeah,
right.
We were in Costa Rica recently, and I can tell you that the beers are more expensive than $3. So don't be.
That was 6 years ago. So
that we went at the beginning of this year.
Sweet.
So we got married just about a year ago. Shannon and I, and we really wanted to go on a big honeymoon, like for a month or something. Like we want to go on a big trip, and then we kind of realized, that was always the thought. But then we kind of realized the summer prior to our wedding, we took a couple old trips, and it's like, we're new homeowners, and we've got our cats there, and it's just like, I don't know. After a bit of time away from the house, it's just like, we found ourselves getting a little bit more homesick. And so we were like, instead of going on like a month-long trip, like, let's break it up. Let's take like a 10-day trip and then a 2-week trip later, you know, divvy it up. And so we went to Costa Rica for 10 days and
Sweet.
we were roaming around the rainforest there. And that was one of those times where I broke out my camera, where it was just like, like taking pictures of animals and nature is something that's like really different than what I'm usually around, but what a beautiful country. It's expensive, but it is beautiful.
It's this year we're thinking, hopefully if it works out, I'd love to do Guatemala. I've wanted to go for years. I haven't been there. It's similar to Nicaragua, and it'd be similar kind of vibe, similar kind of lifestyle, but like it's a different country, so it's going to be a little bit different, But yeah, like you said, like one big trip. See, I try to do 3 or 4 trips a year for about a week or so. Mm-hmm. And then you always have one coming up, but you're never gone for too long.
Yeah.
Or it disrupts your life.
This is a good, I like this. That's a good mode, like, you're always have something to look forward to.
Every about 3 or 4 months.
But I feel like that's kind of how I live my life. Like, is that like, I already have my 2024 calendar, and I already have like so many things for 2024 planned out. Like, there's this Tragic Fate show on the 20th, and we're going to New Orleans for a weekend, and our friends are getting married in Florida, and we're going to do a Mousetrap in the spring and in the summer and in the fall, and then another big one for Christmas. And we've got the Tragic Fate shows, and there's Dropped on Droolard, and maybe we'll do Art in the Park this year. And
I did it last year. It was great.
Yeah, that's like, Art in the Park is like kind of scary to me because it's like setting yourself up for success at something like that is like takes a lot of investment.
Yes.
It's like you've got to be ready. Like I met this girl who super talented, went there, sold out in the first 2 hours of the first day.
Yep.
And she sat there for the next 18 hours with nothing to sell, unable to like, she's like, I paid to be here, so I have to be here. But she was like, what did I do? Like, I wasn't prepared to succeed. Like, I should have showed up here with like 500 pieces instead of 30, like she didn't expect to be so successful. And so that is my big fear for something like Art in the Park, is that I go there with, 10 sizes of each shirt. And in the first couple hours, I realize how badly I fucked up. and I just go, oh man, this would have been our real chance.
You'll sell a lot there too.
And that's the other scary part is like, okay, well, if you're going to sell a lot there, then you got to stock up. You got to have a lot of everything. So you pour what? $5,000, $10,000 into stocking lots of product of everything. And then maybe it's a rainy weekend, or people like, it's just like,
this year was,
I'm not a rich man. And so it's like everything is like all like a balancing act, right? And like mitigated risk. And,
So I actually kind of like, last year was my first year doing it. It was fantastic, but the weather was beautiful. And I went into it. Gorgeous. I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to get that. It's going to rain out of my head. I'm going to pretend like it's going to be great and prepare for that. And I did. And it was great. And I loved it. And since then, even my wife was like, you're going to do it next year, right? And I was like, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I'm doing it again. Scared. And then I got the email, the date. They picked the date. And I have a wedding booked, so I can't do it. And a part of me was just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, the stress of that kind of weekend, because it's like, it's not just the $500 for the booth, it's the thousands of dollars stocking yourself up, and the hours of preparing, and the new tent that is waterproof.
Yeah, because you gotta leave your stuff.
Yeah, or are we gonna run the risk and you know, just use the old tent. Like, yeah, it's scary stuff. It's like, there's like, that's why I said like, it's not easy being an artist, because it's like, there are not a lot of jobs where it's like, there are so many factors that you just like, that have to be, you know, balanced and weighed for you to decide to do something that should be relatively simple. Like, oh yeah, go to this fair and sell your things that you make.
Yeah, like if it rains on June 20th, you're poor, and if it doesn't rain, you're rich. Like, it's weird.
And not just that, like there are other things that can go wrong too. It's just like, yeah. Love of the game. Yeah. Love of the game, man. And I'm glad I love the game, because I probably would have bailed a long time ago if I didn't, because yeah, it can be super challenging and super frustrating, and a lot of times you feel like, you know, that you're like kind of the only person you can rely on is yourself, and that you're on your own, and that's not necessarily true, but it certainly can feel that way sometimes. So I certainly have empathy for, you know, all you other Windsor creatives out there.
Yeah. Well,
this is a good place, though. This is a good place to wrap things up.
I was getting
my ass hurts.
But yeah, I think it's good. Well, thanks for coming on.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's fun to chat with you and have a sip of some nog and some low life, and
that was really good.
Celebrate the Christmas season.
Yeah.
So my plugs. So tragic-fate.com. That's where you can buy all my Tragic Fate shit. Mousetrap is on Instagram and Facebook. It's like mousetrap.artist.bazaar. Not bizarre, bazaar, like a market. Those are like kind of the two things that I'm really pushing. Of course, CJAM, I host my radio show there every Monday morning from 9 a.m. until 10:30. We spin music variety, independent music exclusively. We highlight artists who are performing in the area. We highlight new music, Canadian music, all the good shit. And I think that's all I'm pushing. My wife, Shan, is awesome. She always says I don't plug her enough as I'm plugging all these other things. And so, yeah, hopefully she actually listens to this. Or she can scroll to the end and listen to this last 20 seconds. Is most likely what she'll do, which is fine. Love you, baby. And yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for shining a light on like all these different people. And I hope people enjoyed listening to this, but I really enjoy listening to the podcast. I loved the last episode with Leanne and with Sheila and with Dan McDonald and Sebastian, the first episode. I've watched.
Thanks for following along so much.
Yeah, man, I've watched a bunch of them, and it's just like there's nothing really like this that really delves into creatives in Windsor and who they are and what they do and all the projects they've worked on. And so like on behalf of you know, the community of creatives of Windsor, not the podcast but the humans, thanks, man. It's cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, I appreciate that. All right, guys, thanks for listening.